You know, when we think about the American Civil War, our minds usually jump to the big battles out east, Gettysburg and Antietam. But the war was really won and lost out west. It was a brutal, grinding fight for the country's most important commercial artery, the Mississippi River. So what we're going to do here is explore this forgotten front by zooming way in on a single, overlooked county in Arkansas and use its story to understand the much, much larger conflict. President Lincoln himself said it best. Vicksburg, this fortress city perched high on the bluffs of the Mississippi, it was everything. It was the absolute linchpin of the Confederacy. Jefferson Davis even called it the nailhead that holds the South's two halves together. For the Union to win, they had to have it, period. But here's the thing. The fight for Vicksburg wasn't just about one city. The shockwaves from that campaign spread out for hundreds of miles, bringing the full, brutal reality of total war to places that honestly had felt pretty safe and prosperous until then. Places just like Ashley County, Arkansas. So to really get why this little corner of Arkansas was so willing to go to war, you gotta look back at the decade before it all kicked off. The 1850s in southeast Arkansas were a time of absolutely staggering, almost unbelievable wealth, and it was all built on one thing: cotton. I mean, the numbers here are just wild. In that one decade leading up to the war, Arkansas's yearly cotton production exploded. It increased more than 5 times over. And all that cotton, it meant cold, hard cash. In that exact same period, the value of farms in Arkansas went up a staggering 6-fold. This wasn't just steady growth, it was a full-blown gold rush, only the gold was white. And this is where we see the immense human cost of that boom. By 1860, almost half, 44% of the entire population of Ashley County was enslaved. This wasn't just an economic system. This was a society whose entire prosperity was completely dependent on the forced labor of nearly half its people. Okay, and this is a really crucial point. In 1857, there was this national financial panic that absolutely crippled the industrial North. But the South's cotton economy, it barely even flinched. And that created this really dangerous sense of superiority. It convinced Southern leaders that their slave-based economy wasn't just working, it was invincible. And that made secession seem like a risk worth taking. So you've got this local confidence, this economic boom, but it's about to slam right into a national crisis. The election of Abraham Lincoln kicked off a chain reaction that would force Arkansas to make a choice. What's really remarkable is just how fast this all happened. See, at first, a lot of folks in Arkansas wanted to stick with the Union. They were called conditional Unionists. But their condition was a big one. The federal government could not use force against the states that had already left. So when Fort Sumter was attacked and Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers, well, just like that, the condition was broken. The debate was over. Within weeks, the state voted to secede, and the vote was a staggering 69-1. Right from the start, the Union High Command knew exactly where the Confederacy's jugular was. They called it the Anaconda Plan, and the idea was basically to slowly squeeze the life out of the South. First, blockade its ports so nothing could get in or out. And second, and this was the big one, seize the entire Mississippi River. Doing that would literally cut the Confederacy in two, starving its armies of all the men and supplies coming from the West. Well, by 1864, that grand strategy on a map became a terrifying, brutal reality for the people of southern Arkansas. The Camden Expedition was a Union campaign designed to push deep into the state, tie down Confederate forces, and just destroy their ability to keep fighting. This whole campaign, it turned into an absolute nightmare for the Union. We're talking a string of bloody defeats: Poison Spring, Marks Mills, Jenkins Ferry. But the story of the most infamous one, it all started with a desperate search for food. Okay, so picture this. It's April 1864. The Union Army is deep in hostile territory, and they are starving. A huge foraging party, nearly 200 wagons, was sent out, chasing a rumor about a hidden cache of Confederate corn. Now, here's who was protecting those wagons. The core of the escort was the 1st Kansas Colored Infantry. And you have to stop and think about that. These were men who had been enslaved in Arkansas and Missouri, had escaped to freedom, and now had come back, in uniform, to fight their former enslavers. But they were walking straight into a trap. A massive Confederate force, outnumbering them more than 3-1, was lying in wait for them.
When the Union line finally broke, the battle turned into something else entirely. It became a slaughter. Confederate soldiers, particularly Texans and their Choctaw allies, began systematically murdering the wounded and surrendering black soldiers. It was a horrific atrocity, rooted in the twisted belief that these men weren't legitimate soldiers, but were insurrectionary slaves who deserved only death. The end of the war did not mean the end of the violence. That one horrific massacre at Poison Spring was, in a way, a dark preview of the struggle that was coming. It ushered in a period of absolutely revolutionary change and an equally revolutionary resistance to it, a time we know as Reconstruction. You basically have two powerful opposing forces trying to shape the future. On one side, you have the Freedmen's Bureau, a federal agency trying to build a new society of free labor, education, and civil rights. And they even had an office right there in Hamburg-Ashley County. On the other side, the Ku Klux Klan, a straight-up terrorist organization determined to destroy that new society and restore white supremacy through violence and sheer intimidation. And you know what? For a brief, radical, incredible moment, it looked like the revolution might actually succeed. The Constitution was fundamentally rewritten. Slavery was abolished. Citizenship and voting rights for black men were guaranteed. For the first time ever, Arkansas established free public schools for all children. And get this, a remarkable 32 black men were elected to the state legislature, helping to build the new world they had fought for. But this harnessed revolution, as one historian called it, was destined to be violently suppressed. Its collapse left behind this enduring legacy of unresolved conflict that would go on to shape the next 100 years. The economic cost of the war was just total. It left behind a society that had been completely bled dry. Farmland value collapsed, the number of horses was cut in half, cattle were decimated, and this doesn't even account for the single biggest financial loss, the emancipation of 111,000 people. That erased what was then an estimated $100 million in assets. The entire foundation of the old planter economy, gone overnight. In the end, the war did forge a new nation, yes, but it left its most profound questions about race and power and justice totally unanswered. The battles fought in the fields of Arkansas didn't really end in 1865. The struggle just changed its form. And the echoes of that conflict and of that brief, harnessed revolution continue to shape the fight for a more perfect union even today.